This story started before time began, before there was anything at all, before even the idea of nothing had taken shape. It is hard to tell stories backwards. Storytellers usually start at the beginning and follow events as they unfold, one after the other. But the beginning of this story is not a place we can get to. It's not a moment we can witness. Even the idea of a starting point is something that can only arise once the story has begun. But sometimes stories keep going even after they've ended. We feel the echo of them long after the final word has been spoken. So let me begin this story at its end. When the story of the universe ends, when it reaches the limits of space and time and understanding, when it reaches the heat death of the cosmos, what will it find? Not much, probably. Everything will be spread out and cold and empty. Nothing will happen anymore. There will be no change, no movement, no growth. There will be no more stories. But that ending isn't really an ending. It's more like a coming undone, a return to the tangled threads of existence before things were strung together and patterns took shape. What came before the story? What made the story possible? That's where we have to start. So imagine the opposite of the heat death of the universe. Imagine everything crammed into a space smaller than an atom, hot enough to break apart the nucleus of an atom, dense enough to crush an atom, radiating energy more powerfully than anything in the universe. Energy is the ability to make changes, and there were no atoms yet, no protons and neutrons huddled together around a nucleus, no electrons whizzing around them, and so all that energy had nowhere to go, nothing to push against, no way to exert itself. If you've ever felt trapped inside your body, frustrated by your limits, then you might understand a little of what it was like to be an energetic being without a body. It wasn't so much a feeling as a state of being, pure potentiality that didn't know what it wanted to become. It was not a place where atoms could hold themselves together, nor where familiar forms of structure could endure. Instead, the entire cosmos was filled with a quark-gluon plasma, a dense and turbulent soup of the most fundamental constituents of matter, swirling and colliding at energies so high that confinement itself was impossible. Quarks drifted freely, not yet bound into protons and neutrons, while gluons, the messengers of the strong force, flashed between them in an endless exchange of energy. This was a furnace more extreme than any star. A state of being so alien that our minds can only brush against its edges through equations and metaphors. As fractions of a second ticked by, the universe expanded and cooled, but in that cooling, a miracle unfolded. The fabric of chaos began to thread itself into order. First, the quarks began to drift slower, losing energy. They became confined within the grip of the strong nuclear force, getting caught in groups of 3 or 2, fusing together to form protons and neutrons. These tiny building blocks, stable and persistent, were the first scaffolding of everything yet to come. With each fraction of a second, the universe grew, not only in size, but in complexity. Time itself was learning how to move forward, carving a direction where before there had been none. Within minutes, another transformation occurred. As the furnace cooled further, protons and neutrons found one another and fused into the nuclei of light elements, hydrogen, helium, and traces of lithium. This moment, called primordial nucleosynthesis, was brief but decisive. In the space of less than 20 minutes, the universe forged the chemical ingredients that would one day give rise to stars and galaxies, oceans and DNA, thoughts and dreams. More complex elements, the iron in your blood and the carbon in your cells, would have to wait billions of years for the birth and death of stars. But in these first minutes, the groundwork for chemistry itself was laid down in fire. Still, the universe was far from transparent. For hundreds of thousands of years, it remained shrouded in a fog of charged particles and photons. Light could not travel freely. Every attempt to move was interrupted, scattered, absorbed, and re-emitted in an endless haze. The cosmos was a glowing plasma, opaque to its own brilliance. It was as if the universe had not yet found its face, as though it had not yet opened its eyes to see itself. But expansion is also patience, and as the eons unfolded, the furnace cooled enough for electrons to bind with nuclei, creating the first true atoms. When this happened, the fog lifted. For the first time, photons streamed freely across the cosmos, no longer trapped in the plasma, but racing outward in all directions. This great moment of release, nearly 380,000 years after the Big Bang, is etched into the universe itself as the cosmic microwave background, a faint afterglow that still surrounds you today. It is the oldest light we can see, a whisper from the dawn of time, stretched and cooled by billions of years of expansion until it now washes over the Earth as a dim glow in the microwave spectrum. To look at this radiation is to look back in time, to witness the moment when the universe finally revealed its face. From that point onward, gravity began its quiet work, gathering atoms into clouds, clouds into stars, and stars into galaxies. Over billions of years, the large-scale structure of the universe emerged, filaments of galaxies stretching across unimaginable distances, woven like a cosmic web. Within this web, stars lived and died. forging the heavier elements that would one day form planets and living beings. From hydrogen to humanity, the story unfolded, all written into the silent mathematics of expansion and cooling, of order coaxed from chaos, of silence composed into symphony. But as remarkable as these transformations are, they don't tell the whole story. Because we, too, are made of that original stuff, the hydrogen and helium and lithium born in the first minutes. In your body right now, there are atoms that were forged in the heart of the furnace, cooled in the plasma, shaped by the hand of gravity. The story of the universe is not just out there, it is in here, and in a way, it has always been here. The original story, if you want to call it that, is not out there at all. It is us. To say that the universe began with the Big Bang is almost like saying the story of Cinderella began when the clock struck midnight. Sure, that's when things got interesting, when transformations took place, but it's not the whole story. The story of the universe is not just what happened out there. It is also why it happened. Why the tiniest details fell into place perfectly to allow life to emerge from lifelessness, consciousness from atoms, poetry from physics. It's easy to get lost in the vastness of space and time and feel insignificant. After all, we are just a speck of dust in a corner of a galaxy. That is just one of billions upon trillions. But maybe that's exactly where we need to start looking for the story. Maybe the story of the universe began long before the Big Bang, long before time, when all the possibilities of existence were still held in a single point, a singularity. We don't know what the laws of nature were in that state. We don't know whether they were different from what we observe now, or if they were the same. But we do know that our laws of nature can't just emerge from nothing. They must come from something else. They must be created. And that means the story of the universe didn't just begin. It had to be set in motion by something outside itself. Something set the furnace alight. Something launched the story forward, nudged it into being. But what? That's the question that lies beyond the edge of our current story. The question that our laws of nature cannot answer. The question that maybe we're not meant to answer. Our story is rooted in silence, in the absence of answers, in the mystery of existence. We can trace the story back through the cosmic microwave background, back through the birth of atoms, back through the emergence of stars, back through the cooling plasma, back to the furnace. And somewhere in our bones, we know we won't find the answer there either. The question of existence does not have an answer. It doesn't fit the categories of our minds. It's not a problem to be solved or a mystery to be unraveled. It is the ground from which problems and mysteries grow. It is the fertile darkness from which questions spring and answers take root. It is the origin of our desire to seek and find, to explore and understand, to love and be loved, to create and destroy, to build and break, to laugh and cry, to live and die, to ask and wonder. It is the source of our nature to be human. It is the opening line of the greatest story ever told. And it goes, "Let there be light." Sometimes it takes a lifetime to understand the beginning of a story. Sometimes the beginning doesn't make sense until the end has already happened. We live in the middle of the story. We only see the middle of the story, and the very fact that we are here tells us everything we need to know. The constants of nature are just so. The delicate balance of the laws of nature is just right. The initial conditions of the universe are just so. If any of these things were slightly different, we wouldn't be here. Stars wouldn't form, planets wouldn't coalesce, life wouldn't evolve, consciousness wouldn't emerge. The universe is finely tuned for life as we know it. And that tune, that harmony, that perfect balance, that is the miracle. And the miracle is not just out there. It's in here. It's in you. You are the miracle. The universe is set in motion by the interaction of particles and waves, of quantum uncertainty and gravitational pull. Yes, but it is propelled forward by the emergence of patterns, the choreography of structures from the simplest atom to the most complex galaxy. Yes, but it is driven toward complexity by the constant flow of energy and information. Yes, but at every step, there is a kind of music, a harmony, a balance, a symmetry. And the story unfolds to the tune of this music. And the song rises to a crescendo in you, who are listening. You are the universe at the edge of its own awareness, reaching for the stars and finding them within. You are the music of existence, playing on the strings of space-time, singing in the chords of atoms. You are the universe trying to understand itself. And the more you understand yourself, the more you understand the universe. And the more you understand the universe, the more you understand yourself. You are the universe seeking itself, and the more you seek, the more you find. And so the story continues, and you are the story.